Good morning.
Good morning.
So the reflection today is entitled, "The Three Black Crows of Guilt." Ah! Just to wake you up. I was visiting a patient on the cancer unit this week who was raised Catholic. When she was going through confirmation, her parents decided to get a divorce. So she only attended the first class. And later on in life, when she wanted to receive communion, her aunt said, you can't have communion. You're not ready. You're not confirmed, you're not good enough, you're not a Catholic. Because she didn't finish because her parents were going through divorce. And this isn't about condemnation of the Catholic Church. It's about this human being who has suffered guilt her entire life because she did receive communions, even though she had the voice of her aunt say, you're not really Catholic and you shouldn't be receiving communion. Okay, so this is one person and family's dynamic, and this is the guilt that had been carried her entire life. So when I visited her, and she has exacerbated chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, heart. It was a complication from cancer. She's lying in her hospital bed with multiple comorbidities and not knowing if she'll survive. I walk into her room and ask her, how are you doing? What does someone who's carried that guilt all her life with that physical challenge she faces at that moment, what does she say? And she blessed me and honored me with an answer, which is, I really need communion, but I don't think I should have it. And I said, can you tell me, if you're comfortable, can you tell me more about that? And so she told the story I just told you. And I said, I have just the person for you. Sister Karen, who is just a firecracker of an old nun. And she's beautiful. And I went to her and I said, I think you need to visit this patient. And I told her what the patient's guilt was. And she says, oh, that's hogwash. She says she went to the first class. She can receive it, and she has been receiving it, and she is Catholic. And she went and she gave her communion. And the next day I visited her, and you should have seen the peace on this woman's face. Okay, that is a heavy guilt that she has carried all her life. Now I'm going to give you something really light and insignificant. The other day at Nancy's house, we had a potluck. This gives you the range of how guilt works. I was at Nancy's potluck, and Mary Kleiss brought a Jell-O that was amazing. And I said I would like to take home some for Joe. But guess what? I ate it. And it's been bothering me.
I think it's bothering me too.
Okay, that's not so big, is it? Yeah. But you can see how crazy we get. You know, it's not, there is this, we feel guilty for things that we should have said, the things we shouldn't have said, the things that we carry our whole life, things that we'll let go of soon. Hopefully. Mary will make some more Jell-O. So we all have guilt. We all have different degrees of guilt. We all suffer from guilt. The Apostle Paul, when you heard Theron so beautifully read his sense of the things that he does that he shouldn't do, and the things he should do that he shouldn't do. And there's this thing that we carry that we just own it too long and too much. Shakespeare wrote that the mind of guilt is full of scorpions. So that not only do we keep stinging ourselves, but we sting others when we feel guilty. And I will say to you that I had this amazing Shakespearean professor who taught me how important words are. he also taught me not to mix my metaphors. So I have guilt is like a scorpion of the mind, but I also want to say that guilt is like a crow that sits in your mind and doesn't go away. Remember Hitchcock's The Birds? Ugh. Okay, well, I'm just talking about that cultural image of a crow right now. So that image of a crow that just sits on the branch in your mind and cause condemnation. You're no good! You're never going to get over this. God won't forgive you for this. You aren't good enough. And so you have, this crow that doesn't go away. And the problem is, if we were at that place in life where we could say, aha, there's that crow again, I'm not going to listen. But too often we listen. We listen to that crow and we feel guilty for big things and for little things like Jell-O. And so we come to a place in our lives where we have to ask ourselves, what is this guilt that we carry, and for how long will we carry it? Guilt is really a feeling that we shouldn't have done something, that we knew better, and we still did it. And I know it's a human thing. We all carry it. We all do stuff. We sabotage our peace and our happiness. And we carry it until we just can't go anymore. On many different levels, on many different things. So my proposition to you today is there are 3 kinds of guilt. And it's important that in a message on Sunday morning that we learn. I learned putting this together as Mom and Dad and I put this together, and as I researched this subject, that there is legitimate guilt and there is neurotic guilt. There's that word again, I keep bringing it up. And then there's something called existential guilt. The first one, legitimate guilt, is a healthy, and I know you know what this feeling is, because I know each one of you. This is a healthy sense of remorse that we did something, or we said something, or we didn't do something when we knew it was best to do. There is a part of you that is your God self. There is a part of you that is your best self. And sometimes we don't listen to that part. And we go to the immediate gratification and the sting of the scorpion, and we say or do something that gives an immediate punch of power. And then we go, oh my Lord, what did I do? What did I say? And that is a healthy remorse. That's how we grow. It actually comes from a deep caring that we hurt somebody. And God uses that. God uses that like nothing else. Like nothing else. That is what Swedenborg said.
The other TV that I can see.
Pardon? Oh. Oh.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to see you.
Oh, good. Hi.
Because I'm new here too. You said you knew everybody, but
I don't. What is your name?
Susan Sunshine.
Oh.
Susan McDonald.
Sunshine.
Ah.
Okay, sorry about interrupting.
That's all right.
Okay, God will forgive us.
I am very happy that you wanted to be more connected to the message.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Both of you.
Yeah. And Joe's going, I'll go this way. Yeah. Woo. So we have this, what is called legitimate guilt. It's a real guilt, and it's a healthy guilt. And it comes from a sense of conscience. Emanuel Swedenborg suggests that conscience, knowing right from wrong, is the presence of God with humankind. That is, if you're searching for God, notice when in a day you go, like Paul, I want to do this thing over here, but I really should do this thing over here. And even the fact that you know that you must do the right thing, even if you don't want to do it, there's God showing up. It's that shift, as Brett was talking in our prayer time. It's that shift in perception and the choice to do the right thing and to do sometimes the loving thing, even if we don't want to. That is legitimate guilt. It stems from a deep caring that we've hurt someone and we want to rectify that. It's a beautiful thing. And then you have neurotic guilt, which tears us apart, literally. Literally. Neurotic guilt is of the ego mind. Neurotic guilt is a self-centered place. Neurotic guilt is the part of us that gets torn apart by the shoulds and the ought tos. It's the part of us that blocks God. It's the part of us that, and this is a great line. You ready for this? Neurotic guilt is when our fear becomes glued to our legitimate hurt. Think about that. Neurotic guilt is nothing more and nothing less than when fear in us, which we all have, gets glued. You ever use Gorilla Glue? What's the other one that we use all the time?
Super glue.
Super glue. Think of super glue or Gorilla Glue. And your fear is glued to the real hurt that you're feeling for whatever reason. It tears us apart. And it never works at making us happy. So we have this strange, twisted perception that if we sit in our neurotic guilt long enough, somehow we'll be free and happy again. That we'll deserve to beat ourselves up again long enough and all of a sudden it'll be gone. No. Don't feed it. Don't feed it. Ask for the shift from God, because it really doesn't work. And it has more lives than a cat, by the way. And it has longer endurance than the Egyptian pyramids. It will stick in there and it will bug you for as long as you live if you let it. And it doesn't work, and it's not of God. And I'm sharing this as a way that we all learn together. Because when we notice and we have that signal that this is bothering us for too long, we can know, hey, there's a healthy remorse. There's a healthy sense that I hurt somebody I love or I care about and I didn't want to. And then there's this neurotic guilt that will block God, and it will be always stuck to us and in us forever until we choose against it. And you can. And then there is this existential guilt, which is an interesting thing. Do you ever feel like you dwell on the human race's the human race's fallibilities? Do you ever sit and think, we are an absolute mess, we are beyond help, we are going into the toilet, and we are fallible, we are imperfect, we have a hubris, we have a pride that we'll never fix. We are just full of ourselves as a human race. And we're like the scourge on this beautiful earth. I sometimes catch myself thinking, what are we? We're like a parasite. That is an existential sense of guilt. So what do we do with all of this? We've got a lot of guilt we carry. Do you ever feel like you're just in need of, get off of me, get out of me? Well, with these three black crows that keep cawing at us, condemning thoughts, this is what we can do. The first one is real or authentic remorse and guilt. And if you were to take a closer look, does anybody here have a magnifying glass? Not on you, but no. That's a. Do you? Oh, I thought you were reaching for one. She tricked me. Okay, so you can imagine taking yourself a nice big magnifying glass and you look real close at that first crow. The truth is what you actually see is a beautifully colored songbird who sings a very melancholy sound of remorse. And this first crow, this beautiful songbird, is showing us about love. It's actually a blessing that we hurt each other. Did I say that? Because we can reflect back and say, I didn't mean to hurt you, and I'm sorry. We give each other a chance to ask for forgiveness and to forgive. So this is actually, upon very close inspection, we see this beautiful songbird who sings a tune that moves us at a very sad but beautiful level. And it shows us about the Lord's love, and it shows us about forgiveness and about what life means. Now, the second crow is a very ominous crow. And this crow beats us up until we fall. So what does this second crow of guilt show us? It shows us the importance of what John the Baptist kept saying. Repent, turn away from your sin. Whatever you did, and I always like to define sin as missing the mark. I love the Hebrew meaning there, how it unpacks what sin really is, because I think we can get kind of hooked up in a weird way with sin. I don't like that. I don't like to preach about sin too much, but I think it's a powerful word that it's almost onomatopoeic. It sounds like what it means. Yeah. And so, what is this ominous crow? This crow is showing us how powerful it is to own what we did, to begin to turn around and make the changes in our life that will bring about new life. So even that ominous second crow of neurotic guilt can be used for good with God. The third crow of existential guilt, that the sense that we are a part of the human race and we're doing all these awful things. We are complicit in this human race and what we do. It's kind of ugly. If we get caught up in that third existential sense of guilt, but we don't learn from it, we are complicit. And we create an energy in the universe that is not good for our brothers and sisters and for ourselves, for our children's children. So what does this third crow teach us? This third crow teaches us that our idea of God must be of love. That God's love must be in and beyond us. So, if we believe in a loving and wise God, even those things that we do that are the worst things, and even the Jell-O stealing things, all the things we do, all of those, if our idea of God is such, we can see all the things we do that aren't helpful and nice and good. We can see that as a way to connect and relate with others. How many times have we judged someone for something that they've done, and then we catch ourselves doing the same thing? And how many times can we remember that we've done that and then find a place of compassion that we can support that person and say, I see the real you and you didn't mean it. I know you didn't mean it. So we can use that, and then our theology of a loving and wise God can say, nothing is beyond me to heal it. So if our theology of God is such that God is in us and beyond, there is amazing promise and hope for everything we struggle with guilt about, and with our whole brother and sister, the whole nation of humanity. I studied Apache medicine before my Christian ordination, And I learned about the different ways that animals reflect the other world, and how every animal is a messenger of both sides. So I would never want to say that crows are always ominous and condemning. I would never want to say that. But in our culture, that's something we've learned because of Hitchcock's movie, and other things too. But in the Apache tradition, the crow is a harbinger of the other side. The crow actually tells us that the other side is trying to teach us something. The crow is here that sits on the branch and says, "Pay attention!" Pay attention. So that even legitimate guilt, neurotic guilt, and existential guilt, if your perspective is such that the crow is teaching you about something you can do differently, a way to think about something differently, all those forms of guilt, you don't, as a human being in this amazing nation of people, don't struggle with feeling bad about your guilt. Let it teach you. Let the crow cry out. The other side is ready to teach you something because you're ready to learn.